Hello everybody, Adam Cleary, 442 here, and Erling Haaland, right? You've heard the name, you know who he is. What a horrid, weird, superhuman, unnatural little freak. I absolutely love him. He's like the footballing equivalent of... Did you ever have like a goth kid in your school who was really nice and really sweet and really gentle and everyone secretly really loved him, but he was also about 6'5", and there would be kids at other schools who now couldn't do their exams because he'd windmill into them and they'd have to sit in like one of those metal neck braces for the next 3 months. He's like that, but football. And as well as that really paint analogy, he's also scored, let me think, 1 million goals this season playing for Man City, even when it's been a season when Man City haven't necessarily looked all that good. And that is a lot of goals for anybody to score. He got 5 against Leipzig last night, or 3 weeks ago, depending on whenever you're watching this video, and that itself is a lot of goals to score. I don't know what team you support, but I know for a fact that I would be quite content if my team scored 5 goals in like 5 games, and he did it in 60 minutes, and that's weird. But that is the question, isn't it? How has he scored so many goals in what, as I've already said, has not exactly been a vintage Manchester City season? It's not like he could have put anybody up front and they would have got 40 or 50 or whatever absurd number. Another good striker might have got 10 or 15. I think I would have got 3. He's got 40 gajillion. Well, you lucky, lucky thing, I'm going to explain it to you using only my brain and these tiny little plastic men. Why Erling Haaland has scored so many goals for City, why he continues to score so many goals for City, why he's probably going to continue to score so many goals for City. It's a combination of 2 things. Now, first off, I'm just going to start by explaining what Manchester City do when they attack. If you've probably seen the lineups or any City game this season, you will have seen this kind of shape at the start of the game. There's 4 defenders, Rodri tends to sit there, then you've got some combination of De Bruyne, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, somebody like that. Then you tend to end up with either Mahrez, Grealish, Foden, or somebody out wide. And Haaland, the most consistent thing in the team, he's always up front. But this, get rid of this. That's not how they play. Yes, you're right, that does appear to be a back 4, but just as much as Haaland is this like weird goal-scoring freak, Guardiola, of course, is the smooth, charismatic, charming, weirdly wants to get into Julia Roberts tactics freak, isn't he? He does all kinds of mad stuff, and they don't play with a back 4 despite starting with 4 defenders. What happens, and this is, you'll hear this term a lot over the rest of the season, is they play with a box midfield. Now, yes, well observed, that is a triangle midfield, but what tends to happen is, as the game goes on, one of the midfielders, he moves out to about there, and then one of the defenders, one of the fullbacks normally, comes in to this area, and the defence shuffles across, and you end up with a back 3. Now, last night, if we look, we can see this is the first minute they are defending. That is clearly a back 4, well observed, but not a minute later, as soon as they've got the ball, John Stones it was this time, he trots into the middle of the park, and all of a sudden, box midfield. And what does a box midfield clearly give you, using this nice graph? It gives you a rondo. It gives you, you know, that game you play in school where you got like 2 people in the middle and you're passing it around the outside and you're trying to, and everyone's going, ah, it's great. It gives you that in an actual game of football because you end up with a numerical man advantage in the centre of the pitch. Most teams tend to have 3 players there these days. And oh look, you can knock it around. They can't get anywhere near you. Superiority, advantage, keeping the ball. Guardiola's favourite things in the world. And it isn't just Guardiola, by the way. Arsenal doing this really, really well this season. Normally Zinchenko comes into this kind of area. Barcelona do it really well because it's the only way they can get like Gavi, Pedri, Busquets, and De Jong in the same team. So this is it's a popular thing, it's a trendy thing. You probably see it quite a lot. It'll probably become the new hotness over the next couple of years. But Man City have been doing it this year and it's been hit and miss. The thing about Man City, and you may have noticed this, is they tend to have a lot of the ball. Right? And when your opponent has a lot of the ball, you tend to sit deep and sit deep and sit deep, trying to defend until you can get it back. How many times have you seen Man City parked on the edge of the opposition's area, just knocking it back, waiting for something to happen? Happens pretty much every single game, doesn't it? Right? And the problem with the box midfield is it gives you this straight line here. Or it can, like these graphs, these demonstrations, it never is as perfect and as symmetrical, but you can end up with that problem where you basically have your 2 midfielders and your 2 wide players effectively in a straight line, which is bad because it doesn't give you any sort of real passing angles between them, and it's quite easy to block that off, meaning you have to go backwards, you have to go here, you have to go there, and you end up with this horseshoe sort of effect of knocking it from wide player to central player to defend it and then all the way back again with nothing really going on. That's the problem they've had. That's why they've sometimes looked off the ball. I say off the ball, obviously they're clearly on the ball when they look off the ball, but I mean off the ball in the sort of metaphorical sense while they're on the ball in the literal sense. You've watched, yeah, it's fine. And if you cast your mind back to that part of the season where City were having a little bit of a struggle, the goals had sort of dried up for Haaland, the results weren't great, Arsenal were pulling away, every video package, every pundit, everybody was just like, well, they're not using Haaland correctly. He's making all these runs here, he's constantly moving around, desperately trying to find space in these congested areas, and they're just not playing the pass through. How many times did you see a little graph, Haaland's got round here, he's pulled off that defender, oi oi, he's made the run, and they put a big arrow on it and gone, why don't they just hit this perfect 35-yard pass under pressure through 6 players when they can't even really see what's going on? Why don't they just drop that on his foot every single game? Well, I'll tell you why, because that's not what Man City do. Man City don't like playing passes if there's a very low chance of it coming off. They don't play those low percentage ones. They like to keep the ball and work a situation. By the very definition of the word, if you play a low percentage pass, then a high percentage of the time, you're going to give the ball back to your opponents. And what do Manchester City hate doing? Not having the ball. Pep Guardiola is the Gollum of football. This is the most precious thing in the world to him. He will not give it up unless you physically kill him. And the reason I'm highlighting this system actually works better without an Erling Haaland type making those runs, trying to stretch the defence, trying to get around the back. Last season, if you remember, they kind of played De Bruyne or Gundogan as a false 9 in that system, and they would drop back into the midfield and just create a bit of chaos, because then the defence don't really have anybody to mark, and they were all moving around a lot better, and it worked slightly better than it does with a player desperately trying to be the focal point, to get on the end of a cross, to get on the end of a pass. That's not what gets the best out of that system, and as a result, this system does not get the best out of Erling Haaland, and yet he has scored 39 goals in March. That's sick. And the reason I said there's 2 reasons for this is because there is. The first reason is just Man City, even when you defend the system very well, are very good at playing it, and you can create chances for a player like Haaland, and indeed he scored loads of his goals coming from this system, because that's just the thing about having a good system. Even if teams know how to defend against it and it has inherently got problems, if you're very good at it, it will still create chances. Look, you can still, oh look, I found a gap, Haaland's beat his defender and the ball is there and I'm gonna do this in 1 watch. Oh, I can't believe that. I tell you what, goalie didn't move though, did he? He thought it was in. So reason number 1 why Erling Haaland has scored so many goals for Man City is because it's Manchester City. Even in a system that doesn't get the best out of him and has its own problems, they're still good enough that they can create a lot of chances, and he's good enough as a finisher that he's gonna take them. That can just happen. Can you imagine if that was the entire video? How has Erling Haaland scored so many goals for City? It's because they're a really good team and he's a really good player. Thanks, like and subscribe. Be an easy little job, wouldn't it? But no, that's the reason why he has scored some goals. It's not the reason why he scored so many goals. The reason he has scored so many goals is down to him as an individual and the really clever little things he does when he is playing football, which I will now illustrate for you. Now, I've got a setup here in what you probably call like the first stage. Teams, where possible, don't like to sit too deep if they can possibly help it. So when Man City got the ball at the back, you tend to find teams will kind of be in this sort of position. They'll be contesting the very centre of the park. The defence will be pushing up, but obviously, crucially, not too far and trying to stay back four. They're trying to be compact while not being deep. Erling Haaland is a player you have seen score loads and loads of goals by running very fast past the defender. A really good ball comes in, he gets onto it, he gets through, and he scores a goal. Here is an example of him doing it at Borussia Dortmund. Here is an example of him doing it at Manchester City. In that position, where do you think Haaland would be when the ball is being passed around waiting for that opening? Now, common sense tells you he is here. He is on the shoulder of the last defender, waiting for that ball. He knows he's got better acceleration, he knows he can beat him in a run, but he's desperately trying to pull that defender back, pull him back, make the whole back four go with him, create a little bit of space, allow his teammates to get into a position. They've used the box midfield, they've got numerical advantage, they've found a free man, ball goes in, Haaland makes the run, and he's through. I'm not going to try and score again, that's disheartened me enough. But the thing is, and watch this next time you watch Man City, 9 times out of 10, Haaland is not here. He is here. And that's not because he's coming deep to try and receive the ball. City are almost certainly instructed not to give it to him 2 feet in that kind of position unless they absolutely have no other option. The reason he's doing it is because what are these two supposed to think? You've got this big, strong centre forward who you know will kill you for pace. The last thing in the world you want is to have him on your shoulder, and he's not doing it. He's just not engaging with you. So as a result, you keep an eye on him, but you're mostly just watching the ball because you assume if he's dropping deep, then there's going to be another runner. Maybe De Bruyne's going to come out at centre midfield. Maybe one of the wide players are going to try and get in behind you. And that does happen, so you've got lots of options. But for Haaland personally, he's doing that because he wants you to forget he's there. And the reason for that is because, let's say the ball comes over to this side, right? You're a defender. You can look at the ball or you can look at Haaland. It's very difficult for you to look at both. And especially if Haaland is sort of aware of this, watching the ball get passed around the defence, they're moving across, they're following it around, they've got to keep their position. Haaland will just edge and edge and edge and edge into a position where he knows the defender can't see him. He knows he's kind of about there. He's not on the shoulder, he's not anywhere I'm too worried about him, but I also can't see him. And the second the opportunity arises, City will try and get someone on the ball in that position, and Haaland will go. And the reason he'll go is because he does not need to be there to beat that defender in a foot race. He is so quick and has such a burst of acceleration. He will beat that defender in a foot race even if he gives him a 5 or 10 yard head start. Here it is against Leipzig. Look, this didn't lead to a goal, but you can see the exact scenario. He gets in a position where the defender can't see him with the ball, and he knows he'll just beat him anyway. One more try, so many goals. And the thing is, you've got to add this clever little, almost undefendable trick he does to just his all-round ability. Like, it's his pace that enables this to happen, but even if the defender somehow cottons onto it or catches up to him for whatever reason, he's so strong that it's almost impossible to get him off the ball without fouling him. But also his technical ability is excellent as well. He's such a great striker of the ball. He's such a great instinctive finisher. Now look at most of the goals he scored. What a weird sentence, most of the goals. Look at 4 of the 5 goals he scored in 60 minutes. Last night. They don't come from a clever system or great positional play or this one neat trick that defenders hate. It's just, he's a really good finisher. Like, City ended up congested areas, chaotic situations, and he got himself in the exact right position. The ball falls to him, and he reliably put it away. That is what most of being a really, really good centre forward is all about, and he does that as well. One thing that I can't quantify with like stats or graphs or anything like that is he just knows. Thierry Henry actually said this during the coverage of the Leipzig game, but he liked playing with David Trezeguet because he just seemed to know, he seemed to so instinctively read what his teammates were going to do. Haaland is already so good at reading his teammates' intentions and knowing what they're going to do that the timing of these mad late deep runs is almost perfect. So bottom line here, why does Erling Haaland score so many goals? Because he's capable of scoring so many different types of goals. He's got this clever thing he does which beats defenders. Great, hooray, yay, but he also plays in a team that can put the ball right on his head in congested spaces when they need to. Perhaps not as much as they'd like to, but they're still good enough that they can do that. He can score instinctive finishes, he can score headers, he can score tap-ins, he can score with his left, he can score with his right. He scores so many goals because the man's resume of potential goals he can score just says all. And he's 22. He's 22 years old. 23 this year, but obviously as we know he's 22 until he's 23, so he's probably only going to get better. That's horrifying, isn't it? Why even bother having a league? But continue to have a league we shall, and continue to talk about it I will. So thank you very much for joining us for this, and while you're here, please do consider subscribing to the 442 YouTube channel. And if you like this video, maybe send it to your friends. When was the last time you reached out and spoke to them? They miss you. Get back in touch by sending them a great YouTube video. And also, it would be remiss of me not to point out that we do also run the world's greatest football magazine, so please do head down to the link in the description and subscribe to that if you haven't already. And if you're not convinced, maybe read some of the content on the website, which will tell you what a great product it is. Look at it. It's lovely. Meantime, though, yes, that was how Erling Haaland scored so many goals. Just so you know, as a little reward for making it to the end of the video, I wanted to title this, Why Erling Haaland is Such a Weird Little Freak, but I bet in the end I am a coward and just call it something like How Erling Haaland Scores So Many Goals. So there's a fun bit for you. Anyway, though, get me on Twitter at Adam Cleary, Clery. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know what you think of Haaland. Just let me know what's going on in general. It's your life. You can do what you want with it. And 442 at 442 across the entire social content spectrum. But in the meantime, yes, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've had a nice time. I will see you soon. This week, probably. I'm not doing much else. Bye.